This morning, the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation basically slept through it, literally and figuratively, because around 6 a.m., a car was blown up, along with what is now the third general of the General Staff of the Russian Federation's army. This time it was a lieutenant general who was responsible for the operational training of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. His name was Fanil Sa, and he died in his own car. Most likely, as you can see now in the center of the frame, that's a Kia Sorento crossover. He started the car, and then, as Russian law enforcement now say, a homemade device detonated. He died. Sarvarov did not die immediately, but in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. What was this general known for, basically? Here you can see him. This is a meeting with Putin. He's circled in green. That's the general who was killed. He was a participant in combat operations during the Ossetian-Ingush conflict, and he also took part in the Chechen campaigns. He also participated in Russian Federation military operations in Syria. And of course, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine didn't pass him by either. He was also involved in planning certain operations. The third general, yes, and now let me show you an interesting post. This is in fact a typical story these days. Basically, the entire segment of Z-Telegram channels has too many questions for the FSB, the Federal Security Service. Why is this happening? And now a very interesting story is spreading about the possibility that a mole has appeared in the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation. If someone is deliberately turning a blind eye to... There have been a lot of murders. I mentioned that this is the third general. Now, we'll go through all of these stories. But before that, let's briefly look at the initial conclusions from this story, which looks like this. They've already completely cleaned up the entire site of the devastating explosion, but crucial investigative actions at the scene are still very much ongoing. The official investigative committee of the Russian Federation has now made an important statement. This statement is about what is essentially considered the primary and most significant version of events.
You definitely won't be surprised by what you're about to see. Take a very close look at this situation. For the express and crucial purpose of providing comprehensive and practical assistance in effectively solving this complex crime, highly skilled forensic experts from the central office have been promptly dispatched to the scene. The examination of the scene continues. The necessary examinations will be assigned, including forensic, medical, and explosive technical analyses. Witnesses and eyewitnesses are being questioned, and surveillance cameras are being reviewed. Various theories of the murder are being investigated. One of them is a theory connected to the organization of the crime by Ukrainian special services. The progress of the investigation is under the supervision of the Central Office of the Investigative Committee.
Well, if that's the case, then congratulations to the Ukrainian Special Services. Although, friends, at this moment, there has been no official information from Ukrainian intelligence, the main intelligence directorate, or the Security Service of Ukraine. In other words, there is currently no official confirmation that this could have been a successful operation by the Ukrainian Special Services. But the investigative committee of the Russian Federation, of course, always tries to pin everything on Ukraine and completely ignores the fact that, let me show you this post again, which is spreading on Telegram. There are a lot of questions for the Federal Security Service. Why are there so many questions? Because here you go, these are three generals. Sarvarov is the third in line. First, second, third. Let's start from the beginning. So the first is Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov. Let me make this picture bigger. Igor Kirillov, what happened to him? He was the head of the troops for radiation, chemical, and biological protection, blown up in a car a year ago. Putin personally called his murder the gravest blunder of the Russian law enforcement and special services. Number two, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, Deputy Chief of the Main Operational Directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Federation Army, eliminated in April 2025. Also in a car, Vladimir Putin did not publicly comment on the tragic murder of Moskalik, but he did send a formal funeral wreath to his solemn burial ceremony. That is all the information available. Apparently, there was nothing to comment on, since this too, a most serious, obviously, blunder by the Russian law enforcement and special services. And here you go, December 2025, morning of December 22nd, Lieutenant General Sarvarov also died in a car in his own Kia Sorento on Sineva Street, Moscow. In 2016, this general was appointed as the head of the Operational Training Directorate of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. According to the website of the Russian Ministry of Defense, this directorate is responsible for planning, preparing, and organizing exercises, as well as organizing and planning the daily activities of military command bodies and officials of the Ministry of Defense. So, in fact, this person deals with paperwork. The general apparently is not a combat officer. Maybe in the past, yes, but not now. The investigative committee has traditionally found a Ukrainian connection in all these explosions, but as you understand, absolutely no conclusive evidence has been definitively found in any of the three aforementioned cases up to this precise moment in time. I think it will develop further, but it seems to me it won't concern anything Ukrainian. Even if there is a trace, friends, I think it's more about the search by the department in the Federal Security Service of Ukraine for the murder of generals. Well, this is a complicated story, one that is personally very painful for Putin himself. There are fewer and fewer generals. The enemy is getting closer and closer, and this is not just some kind of, it's not air defense or a drone, it's explosives in the cars of these generals themselves. And in this case, if we're talking about Sarvarov, then the explosives were planted in a car that was parked near an apartment building in the courtyard where this general lives. Just imagine this whole situation. This is, well, a complete discrediting right now, and my personal prediction is that they won't find any Ukrainian trace. And if they do find one, it will mean that the internal investigation obviously led nowhere. And the moles, if they exist, have dug themselves in very deep. But the more likely scenario is that this is a complete purge that's about to happen to the Federal Security Service. Or what? Or do they need a fourth victim? Or maybe even a fifth? That would only make things easier for us, friends.